A warm welcome to Disky Talk with Liolo. If you're tuning in for the very first time, I do ask that you please subscribe and hit that notification bell. If you've been a part of this journey, I hope you thoroughly enjoy this episode. So, on today's episode, I discuss all things CAF Champions League as our Ahly take on Mamelodi Sundowns. So, when you have a look then at this episode, I will have a tactical pre-match analysis of that mouth-watering CAF Champions League encounter. So last season then within the CAF Champions League, Ahly did knock out Mamelodi Sundowns within the quarter-finals. However, this time around they do meet within the group stages. So when you have a look then at Ahly the last time out they did play against Al Hilal, where then the game ended 0-0. However, we did see Afsha come off the bench and he almost won the game for Ahly at the death, where he hit the post. And then when you have a look at Mamelodi Sundowns, the last time out they played against Al Merreikh, where then they started the game very well. They were dominating proceedings. However, they couldn't finish off those chances. And as the game grew on, Al Merreikh really got into the game, had opportunities of their own, and finished off the game stronger. So that game also ended 0-0. So both teams then, what they do have in common is that the last time out, they played then two scoreless draws, and they were also versing Sudanese teams. However, this time around, they come up against each other. So the red team then will represent Al Ahly. So with Al Ahly then under Pitso Mosimane, it is very important to note then that they're quite tactically versatile by virtue of the fact that they can play a 4-3-3, they can play a 3-4-3, they can play a 4-2-3-1 as well, depending then on who Pitso Mosimane goes with. However, when you have a look at the last time out, they played against Al Hilal, they went with the 4-3-3, and I do foresee them going into this encounter with a 4-3-3 as well. And also then important to note that they are missing some key players, and it's going to be very interesting then to see what Pitso Mosimane goes with. However, this is Al Ahly, and they have quite a lot of quality players within their ranks. And we could also see then a couple of key players who are out come back to the squad. However, when you have a look at it then in goals, one of those key players that they are missing is Zwane. So in goals, the last time out, they did start with Lofty then, goalkeeper then, who is very commanding within his 18-yard, and also then a very good shot stopper. And then when you have a look then at the back four, this is where it gets very interesting then, because I will start at the center back pairing. So as the right-sided centre-back against Al Hilal, they started with Abdul Monet, and then as the left-sided centre-back, they started with Yasir. However, we could see Ashraf come back as the left-sided centre-back, and I think that he will partner Abdul Monet. And when you have a look at these two then, with Ashraf, then this is a quality centre-back who offers you so much then from a defensive perspective, because he's very solid, even though he might not be the biggest defender in stature, but he reads the game very well and he's very solid at the back. And then in possession of the ball, he will look to open up, and he will look to progress play for this Al Ahly side from build-up phase, working it then into consolidation phase. A player then who's also got a great range of passing, so he can then play those 40, 50-yard balls up front, where then he's looking then to find his man, and he can also switch the point of reference. So he can go then within this half space. If he's got the ball deep in this half space, in that pocket of space, he can look to switch play. So a centre-back then who's got so much quality from a technical perspective within his skill set. And what's key to note then is how this Al Ahly side look to build up. So the two centre-backs will go really deep, and then you will have Hamdi Fati looking to go in there to help the build-up play. So that's how Al Ahly then look to build up. And when they look to build up like this, they will obviously then look to draw the opposition right high up. They look to go for a quick build-up and then look to play through the lines very quickly. And they have found success with regards to building up like this. And I do think then with Ashraf, who is much more solid and much more than comfortable on the ball, more than Yasir, I think then that this could improve their build-up play, because whenever then they did build up, they were finding joy. However, you could see that it could be a lot better from a qualitative perspective if you had a natural left-footed player. And they've got Ashraf now who plays as the left-sided centre-back, and who will then be looking then to open up and start that play for Al Ahly. Very key then, because this is a very important component of how they look to transition from build-up phase, working then into consolidation phase. And then when you have then a look at their midfield, so I would go with the midfield three, and the player then who sits at the base as the lone pivot, you will have Hamdi Fati. This is then a player then who's very experienced and has been a part of this Al Ahly side for so many years, and a player then who's got a very good skill set with regards then to how he can break up play within the heart of midfield. He reads the game very well, and a player then who's also got a very good passing range. So at times then he can look to switch the point of reference for this Al Ahly side, move them from one side to another side with just one pass. And very, very experienced, reads the game very well, and very comfortable on the ball. And then when you have a look at then the two number 8s, and within the heart of midfield, as the right-sided number 8, you would have Alou Dieng. So with Alou Dieng, this is then a player then who can go box to box for Al Ahly. He can also at times be the one then to sit deep. So at times then, in relation then to the match situation, sometimes you will see Alou Dieng sort of go within the middle of the three, at times looking then to collect further deep. You know, whenever then they would institute that positional rotation within the heart of midfield, where they're looking then to get the ball and looking to progress it. However, a lot of the time you will see him enjoying his time within the right-sided half space, deep. At times he can also push up. A player then who's got these runs from the heart of midfield. So at times he does then look to go on these solo runs within the heart of midfield, and he's very good at driving with the ball at his feet. And a player then who, whenever he has advanced and he has pushed up, he can find that pass then where he's looking then to split the defense. You know, a player then who I think then is very, very solid, and I think then one of the best midfielders within Africa, if not the best, then when you have a look at how well he's been doing in the recent years for this Al Ahly side. And then when you move on right along, then you've got El Sulaya, who plays in the left-sided half space, a player then who does tend to oftentimes push up and look to add the numbers from time to time. And when you do have a look then at this midfield three, you've got El Sulaya, you've got Hamdi Fati, and then you've got Alou Dieng. And I think then that this is such a complete midfield three, because then from a qualitative perspective, they tick numerous boxes, you know. And within this midfield three, then what I really like then about them is that they complement each other very well. And when you do have an Alou Dieng, he can always then look to come alongside. They could always, so if Pito Msimane asked to go with the 4-2-3-1, Alou Dieng can play within a double pivot, as he's very solid and is also very good at breaking down play as well. But I do foresee them going then with a 4-3-3. So let's just move them up there. And then when you have a look then at the left wing. So at left wing, I do foresee them then starting with Afsha, starting off the left-hand side, who will obviously then look to drift, because the last time out against Al Hilal, he came off the bench. And yeah, I just feel that he will be starting this game. And then you will have Sherif up front. And then on the right-hand side, you could have Mohamed Tahir, or you could have El Sahat, or you could potentially have Percy Tau, who could look then to return. So we do know that Percy Tau was injured, and with then his injury, he has looked to recover, and he is then a very key player for this Al Ahly side. So we could see then Al Ahly go with a front three then of Sherif, Afsha, Percy Tau as well. However, if Percy Tau then doesn't start, he could always then look to come off the bench. So we'll go then with Afsha, we'll go with Sherif, we'll then go with El Sahat, who could start on the right-hand side. So when you have then a look then at this front three, and you have a look at Afsha, he is their key player then, and he always then looks to drift in between the lines. He does offer them then that positional and qualitative superiority. And when you have a look at it then from this perspective, if Sundowns do go with the 4-2-2-2, then they could look to outnumber them, because then with Afsha, he does look to drift into the middle a lot of the times, and he does institute those overloads, and at times you could even see him drift to the right-hand side. This is their playmaker and a key player then who is allowed then to roam. And the reason then why I've left out the fullbacks is because they are very important to how Ahly look to play. So whenever then Afsha would go in, at left back, you've got Ali Malul. So with Ali Malul, he does look then to offer Ahly that width on the left-hand side. A player then who's got very, very good crosses and a very good final ball as well. From a qualitative perspective, he ticks numerous boxes. So he does offer Ahly then that qualitative superiority. And whenever then he's in a deeper pocket of space, what then he looks to do very well is that he's got these passes then where he can break the line, where he's looking then to bend that pass into Sherif. That's a pass that he plays a lot of times, and whenever he does look to play that pass, that's when Ahly then would institute the third man, because then he'd play it into Sherif. Sherif then can always then drop that ball off if Afsha then has looked to drift in while that ball is traveling. Afsha can always look to pop up into that space. Sherif can drop it off for him, or he could then look to bring Alou Dieng in, could look to bring Sulaya in as well. So on the left-hand side then, you will have Ali Malul, who then does look to offer the width for this Ahly side. And then as the right back, you do then have Mohamed Hani, and Mohamed Hani then is a very, very solid right back. And when I look at him then as a fullback, this is a complete fullback, because from a defensive perspective, he's very strong with regards to the 1v1 situation. And then when it comes to offering the width and delivering those balls within the box, he offers you a lot of quality, because then he does deliver quality balls into the box. However, at times, you will see him then hold a deeper position in relation then to Ali Malul. So at times, he won't always push further up, but he will hold sort of a deeper position on the right-hand side. However, whenever then the right winger, which is El Sahat or could be Mohamed Tahir, when they look to drift in closer then into zone 14, then you could have him looking then to offer that width for this Ahly side. And when you do then have a look at this Ahly side, when they're really aggressive and they're really pushed up into opposition half, at times it does look somewhat of a 2-3-5, and that's how aggressive it can get, as they can look then to penetrate the opposition across all 5 vertical zones. So in vertical zone 1 with Ali Malul, in vertical zone 2 when Afsha has popped up into that half space, sometimes you will even end up going into vertical zone 3. In vertical zone 3 then with Afsha, whenever he goes there, with Sherif up front, where he looks then to give them the presence within the box and within zone 14 as well. Within vertical zone 4 then, you're looking then at Sahat, whenever then he does drift in, or Mohamed Tahir or Pesitao as well. And you're also then looking at, sometimes you would then also have an overload. If then you find that Afsha has drifted to the right-hand side, then you'd have Alou Dieng there as well. And then on the right-hand side with Mohamed Hani as well. So when you have a look at this Ahly side, they've got so much quality and so many options as well, because some of the players I have mentioned might not start, and you could have certain players then who could always come off the bench and look to affect this game for Ahly against Mamelodi Sundowns. However, because they are coming up against Mamelodi Sundowns, I think that tactically they will be very cautious. So at times they won't overcommit. So whenever Ali Malul does look to offer the width on the left-hand side, I do think that Mohamed Hani will hold a deeper position on the right-hand side. If Mohamed Hani has moved up, then Ali Malul could look then to come, in a deeper pocket of space for this Ahly side. However, these two fullbacks are very key then in regards to how Ahly look to play. And then you've got Afsha, and then you've got Sherif as well. And you've got this quality midfield 3, which are very, very solid. So I do foresee it then being a very, very interesting encounter. Also then how Ahly will be looking then to press this Mamelodi Sundowns side. So with Ahly, they are a side then that appreciate ball possession. They do look to build up from the back very deep, where you will see the 2 centre-backs dropping very deep into their own box. They look to build up from the back, work it into consolidation phase, and then work it into the final third as well. And whenever they lose the ball, they do look to counter press, if then the counter press is on. So they do play at a high intensity, at times they will slow the game down. So this then is a side that is tactically versatile and a side then that is very intelligent with regards to how they look to manage the games, because they are very, very experienced within CAF Champions League football. However, let's move on right along then, and let's have a look then at Mamelodi Sundowns. So with Mamelodi Sundowns, we do know that they have been playing a 4-2-2-2, and I think then that they have been struggling with this 4-2-2-2 as they've lacked that quality, and they haven't been creating enough chances up front, and they haven't been converting those chances, and within the heart of midfield they have at times lost that control, and whenever you lose control of the midfield, you do lose control of a game. So it's going to be very interesting to see then if they do go with the 4-2-2-2, especially considering then that Al Ahly would have such a strong midfield three then in Alou Dieng, Hamdi Fati, and then Sulaya as well. So when I have a look then at this game and Mamelodi Sundowns coming up into this encounter, the last time out then, when you have a look at Mamelodi Sundowns, they did start then with Onyango in goals. They went with two centre backs then in Rushin Duruk, and then they went with Onyango as well. And these two have been very, very solid in the art of defense for Mamelodi Sundowns. So the problem for Mamelodi Sundowns isn't defensively, because defensively they've been very solid, and the opposition then also haven't really been able to create clear-cut chances whenever they do play against this Mamelodi Sundowns side. So they've been very solid within the heart of defense, especially the last time out then. I must say that Onyango was very, very solid, and from a defensive perspective, I do think that he was their best player. So with Mamelodi Sundowns then, whenever they look to build up, theirs is a bit different, because then you will have Jali looking to drop in to the box, and at times then they will look to build with a back three, as opposed to then how Al Ahly look then to build like that. So that would be the difference. That's how Al Ahly would build up. Mamelodi Sundowns then would build up like this, where you've got Onyango would open up to the left hand side, you've got Rushin Duruk, Jali then would look to go right next to Onyango. That is how Mamelodi Sundowns build up, and that is how Al Ahly build up. So there's a difference then. So that's how then they would be looking then to build up this Mamelodi Sundowns side. And then at left back they did go with Lyle Kay. And with Lyle Kay then, this then is going to become a very, very interesting encounter, because we do know that Lyle Kay does offer you that quality within vertical zone 1, where he does look to give you the width. Whenever then Ralani would tuck in, or his inverted winger would look to come in to the half space, then he would give you that width on the left hand side. We do know that he possesses so much quality with that educated left foot of his. He can deliver those quality balls into the box, and we also know that he is a specialist when it comes to taking those free kicks. However, with Lyle Kay at times in those deep pockets of space on the left hand side, with regards to then 1v1 situations, he isn't always as solid. So you could then look to exploit Lyle Kay on the left hand side. So if they do start with Percy Tau, if they can get Percy Tau to go one-on-one against Lyle Kay, you know, he can look to go one-on-one with him, because Percy Tau is very quick and he's very skillful and he's tricky as well. And whenever then he would be looking to go one-on-one with him, if Percy Tau does start, he can look to cut in. If you've got El Saad can also go one-on-one with him and look to go on the outside. So from a defensive perspective, it's going to be very key then that Lyle Kay is very, very solid on the day. So very important then when he does go forward, when he does look to offer Mamelodi Sundowns that width, and from the free kicks as well, and defensively as well, because then I do see then a game that will be, I do foresee the game being a bit open. I do see the teams going at each other and playing then that expansive football, because both teams do love to play a very expansive brand of football. And then as the right back, they did start with Mudau the last time. So with Mudau then, defensively I think he is very solid. However, whenever then he does look to progress within vertical zone 5, at times his decision making has been very poor. So against Al Hilal, we did see him break, and he had a very good chance then to either score or then be able to lay the ball back for Savreda. And had he been able then to lay that ball back then for Savidra, then it would have been a situation where we could have seen Mamelodi Sundowns possibly go ahead within the first half. So we do know that then this is a very solid right back. However, whenever then he does look to advance, he should look then to ensure that his decision making is a lot better, especially then when he's looking then to offer Mamelodi Sundowns that quality within the final third, because at times you will look then to offer that width. However, what's key to note then with the two fullbacks is that against Al Hilal, we did see a much more conservative approach. So whenever Mudau would look to offer the width on the right-hand side, at times you'd see Lila K come in and sort of invert. So it was then a bit more cautious, because then this is CAF Champions League. And against Al Ahly, I do foresee them doing the same thing when Mudau then is at right back and the ball then is on the left-hand side and they have overloaded the left. Then I do see Lila K looking then to offer that width, with Mudau then sort of tucking in at times sort of inverting, but looking then to ensure that they keep those numbers, because then if you have both of them going, and that will then obviously leave those two pockets of spaces where then Al Ahly could look then to exploit this Mamelodi Sundowns side. So I do foresee them then being a bit more conservative, and in relation then to the opposite fullback, if he's high and wide, I do foresee then the other one holding a deeper position, as opposed to both of them being high and wide, which is something we have seen at times from this Mamelodi Sundowns side, whenever then they are very aggressive within the opposition half. And then when we move it on right along then, we look at the midfield. So this is where it gets very interesting, because Mamelodi Sundowns have struggled within the heart of midfield, especially considering then that whenever teams do look to press them, they do look to play on the front foot and they do look to match them within the heart of midfield. Mamelodi Sundowns have struggled from this perspective. And this then has seen them lose control of the midfield and lose control of games at times. And they haven't really been playing at their best. So I do see a formational change and a formational tweak. So I do see them then relinquishing one player up front and then going then with a midfield three. However then, it's going to be very interesting to see who they use as a midfield three. But coming up into this encounter, I do foresee them then starting with Rivaldo Coetzee as the lone pivot in there, as their defensive midfielder, who would then obviously take up the role then of libero, where at times you would drop in between the two centre halves whenever then play would dictate for him to do so. And then as the 1-8, I do see him starting with Untitled, and then also starting then with Umkhulisi. And the reason why I say Umkhulisi is because within a midfield three, it's very important then that the midfield personalities are able to complement each other. And that's of course then if Umkhulisi is fit, you know. So if Umkhulisi is fit, I do see him starting within this midfield three. And I say Umkhulisi because Umkhulisi within this Mamelodi Sundowns side, his midfield personality is quite special, because then he is the ball carrier and the energizer as well, because he can look to press, he can go box to box, he can drop deep, he can advance play for this Mamelodi Sundowns side from build-up phase into consolidation phase, and he can then offer you then that a bit of that creativity and that ball carrying ability as well, which then becomes very important within a midfield three, because then you'd have the passer in Rivaldo Coetzee, who can then at times sort of look then to offer Mamelodi Sundowns that deep laying playmaker ability. As much as yes, he is sort of a libero for this Mamelodi Sundowns side, but he's also got the qualities of a deep laying playmaker. So we can look then to start play for this Mamelodi Sundowns side from deep. And then you would have Umkhulisi, who is the ball carrier and the energizer as well. And then with Andy Lechali, you've got a player then who can break down play and can be an energizer as well. So within then a midfield three, it's very important that you have at least a ball carrier or a creative player who then can play as an advanced 8, or then can look to have those moments where he can carry the ball for his midfield, because then that then offers the midfield a lot more balance, as opposed to them then having midfield personalities which are too similar. So I do see that midfield three starting. And then up front then, Peter Shalulile. When you look at Peter Shalulile, then this is a player who I think, he's really been struggling for this Mamelodi Sundowns side, and he really hasn't finished off those chances that he's gotten for this Mamelodi Sundowns side. So I do think that he has really struggled, and it's going to be very interesting to see then how he can look to impose himself. As we do know that from time to time, Peter Shalulile does often at times look to drift out wide, and when you have a look at this centre-back pairing, they aren't the quickest with Abdul Monet as the right-sided centre-back and Ashraf as well. So Peter Shalulile could look to make those runs in behind and look to stretch play for this Mamelodi Sundowns side. And then you could have part of the front three, you could have Temba Zwane, and then you could have Surprise Ralane. So that's how I foresee Mamelodi Sundowns going about things in this game against Ahly. I think it's going to be very important that they reinstate the midfield three, because with the midfield three, then it does then offer them numerical superiority within the heart of midfield, and they'll be able to match up against Ahly's midfield three, and it also offers them that qualitative superiority. And also then, it would also then allow them then to also then be able to institute the overload. So whenever then Zwane would come in and Ralane would come in, they would still have the overloads, as they would like them to obviously maintain the overloads within the two half spaces and maintain the overload within the heart of midfield. So if play then is on the left hand side, it would then look a bit something like that, which then would give them the numerical superiority by virtue of the fact that then this would then become then a 5 versus 3 within the heart of midfield, and that's how then they would be able to regain that control of the midfield. And what then I also like about this is that, yes, it is against Ahly, but if they are brave and at different phases of play, they can actually look to push the wing backs high. And if they do have Ahly penned in, so as much as at times the one will look to push high up in regards to the fullback, the one will look to keep a deeper position within their vertical zone. However, they can also push, and if they push then high up, what then this does is that the centre backs open up just a bit. Rivaldo could see in there, and then you've got Umkulisi, who can come to the right side of half space, and then you've got Ujali, who can open up as well. What then this does is that it offers them a rest defense of a W or a 2-3 sort of shape, a 2-3 block. So the rest defense then would be a 2 and a 3, or you can have a look at it from a different perspective. It is then a W rest defense. And in this case, whenever then they do lose the ball and Ahly look then to counter, and they've got then that offensive transition, then they would be able to combat that because they'd have 5 players behind the ball. And I think from this perspective, it would give them a lot more control, because then if they do go very aggressive against Ahly and they do go on the front foot, then they've got 5 players across then the whole pitch, so they can look then to penetrate throughout the 5 vertical zones. In vertical zone 1 on the left hand side, vertical zone 2 in the left side at half space, within vertical zone 3 within the heart of midfield, where then you will have Shalulile. At times you could have Zwane coming in, you could have Ralane coming in there as well, and then vertical zone 4, where you could have Temba Zwane there, and then Ralane whenever he moves across, and then you could have Umkulisi there, where they can have that overload. On the right hand side then you would have Mudau. And there's also then the option of Muren as well, but I do foresee Mudau starting because he is a lot more defensive. So with Sundowns then, if they do go to a 4-3-3, it does then also give them the opportunity then to institute those wide overloads, you know. So this is something we could see, whereas with the 4-2-2-2-2, at times we didn't see the wide overloads, you know. Whereas with the 4-3-3, then it does then allow them to overload vertical zone 5 and vertical zone 1 a lot more, so they could institute those wide overloads and still maintain control of the midfield and have enough creative players to create those chances for Peter Shalulile. However, with Mamelodi Sundowns, we do know that they've got a plethora of options. So, you know, we do know that they do have then Saavedra, they do have Toby Mvala, they do have Kutumela if he doesn't start, they do have Safranco, you know, and they do have Elisedi Kapinga, they've got Neo Mayema, they've got Mukwena, who can always come within the heart of midfield. So this Mamelodi Sundowns side have so many options that they could go with. However, at home, do let me know, how does this one play out for you? Do you see Mamelodi Sundowns winning this encounter, or do you think Al Ahly will win this encounter, or do you foresee it playing out in a stalemate? I think Al Ahly will win this game 1-0. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in to yet another special episode of Diski Talk with Luyolo. Signing out.